Top story on AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. Here's Ryan O'Neill.
No doubt about it. Top story of the week was the announcement from Steuben County Sheriff Dave Cole. After 41 years of law enforcement, he's retiring this winter. Sheriff Dave Cole on the line with us. Thanks for joining us, Sheriff, to talk on Top Story.
You're welcome.
Sheriff, you were sheriff for 4 years, Sheriff Cole. Your legacy, lots of drug arrests, fighting drugs, the drug tip line and drug tip website, more school resource offices, and of course, you were widely known for your SAFE Act opposition. What stands out to you the most out of all those things?
What was the SAFE Act?
Yes, and you were one of the leading sheriff's departments in that. What do you remember about that, Sheriff?
I remember when the SAFE Act came out, I sat down with the undersheriff, Jim Ellard, and Captain Tyner, and we composed the letter that I put out to the governor. And then when I went to Albany, the governor had, I went to Albany for a sheriff's conference. The governor had a couple of his representatives follow me around the conference. It was really unpopular in New York State, but not in New York City.
That's probably very true because of the downstate voting bloc being as Democrat as it is. Sheriff Cole, you also worked a lot on fighting drugs in Steuben County.
Yes, when I come on board, the first thing I did was I brought in all the state police, chiefs of police, the district attorney's office, and my people, and we sort of unified into a unilateral drug enforcement agency where we have troopers and deputies and various police officers, and then the state police CNET, our narcotics people, come into the county, and as you've seen, a number of arrests throughout the county, not just me, but all of the police agencies involved.
Yes, I know you worked hard with Hornell Police Investigator Tom Ianni on a number of big arrests in the Hornell area. Sheriff, out of all the cases you worked on, which case do you remember? Which case will stand out in your mind the most out of the last 4 years?
You mean of all the criminal cases?
Yes.
Probably the homicide investigation we're doing right now in the town of Caton, because it's been an extensive investigation. We've used the state police extensively, their finesse and expertise, and just the man hours that have gone into the case. It's still now preparing for trial, but it's just been an unbelievable amount of work as far as collection of evidence and, the crime scene maintenance.
You come to the Sheriff's Department after working as a state police officer, among other law enforcement jobs. Is that great training, the state police?
Yeah, the State Police Academy is good because the difference between, I think, the State Police Academy and our police academy here in Corning is the state trooper has to go away to Albany, and he's there 5 days a week, the entire day, overnights, etc. And the police academy here is also good, but the State Police Academy, I think, really rounds you out. It's more like a military type background.
Yes, and a lot of great training, I imagine, with the state police. You also worked in the Addison Police Department and the Wayland Police Department. What did you bring to the Sheriff's Department from working in those two departments? What experience do you think stood out the most in those years?
Well, in the Addison Police Department, I was SRO because you didn't vote for me in the last election in 2008, so I lost the sheriff's election. I went to Addison, and actually I'm not complaining. It was really a great learning experience. For 4 years, I learned that school resource officers have a great impact in the schools as far as with the students. You develop friendships and alliances, but also keep order. And I think the way the world is headed today, I now have 10 school resource officers in Steuben County, one in 10 schools. So that's quite a good, I think, a good protective measure.
How about Wayland, the Wayland Barracks? What did you bring to the Sheriff's Department from working in Wayland?
Well, Wayland, I worked in Wayland for 10 years as a station commander, basically the boss, and I ran troopers for 4 counties, Ontario, Yates, Livingston, and Steuben, and had 27 troopers and a couple investigators. And I basically just got my administrative knowledge from working the state police for 10 years at Wayland.
You know, Sheriff, I think one thing I'll remember you for is speaking out against the anti-police sentiment out there today. That's something you've spoken on and written on. Anything you'd like to say on that topic?
I think a lot of the anti-police sentiment out there has been attributed to a lot of the political environment that this country's faced the last several years, and really not a lot of support at the higher echelon political elements. The police are condemned a lot of times for a lot of things, and I think that the police officer out there working the streets, majority-wise, are good, honest, hard-working people. We have our incidences across the country, but we're plagiarized or we're really
sensationalized. If you count the number of officers versus the number of officer offenses.
Right, and I think the problem is that they just had a new study that there's been a lot more violent crimes and a lot more deaths, actually, by murder in a lot of your bigger cities because the police have gotten the attitude, which I'm hoping they don't have, but some of them have gotten the attitude it's better just to stand aside rather than be confrontational and out into arrest-type scenarios.
So they're afraid of getting YouTube, so they kind of let whatever's going to happen happen. Is that what you think is going on as a reaction against the media fueling the public against the police?
Yeah, it's the world has changed. The political environment controls a lot of this. A lot of the things we see now, we're talking about the bathroom issue and different other issues around the country that have come up to the surface. And I just think that when the political environment changes and there's more support shown to the police, it'll turn itself around.
Talking with Steuben County Sheriff Dave Cole, you were 9 years as an undersheriff. Tell us about those years, Sheriff Cole.
When I first come into the sheriff's office, actually in 1999, I retired from the state police. Sheriff Twiddell came over to my house one night and asked me if I'd be undersheriff, and I come on board. And basically it was 9 years of developing policies and procedures. The sheriff's office at that time wasn't accredited, and they didn't really have a lot of good policies in place for pursuit driving and firearms and all types of complaint work that you handle. And so for 9 years I basically helped Sheriff Twiddell develop a lot of the policies in the jail and the road patrol and the court security that are actually accredited or acceptable policies to have in a department.
You know, you're the sheriff for Steuben County. That is a very large county. The third largest county in the state?
I think it's seventh, but it's still a large county. In fact, at night I'm at home and I get calls at home at night. If I want to go out to something, 9 times out of 10, it's in the southern part of the county, and it could be as much as 40 or 50 miles away. It's usually quite a drive. It's a big county.
Yes, and how do you feel that the 911 system helps as far as getting assistance to people who need, either medical attention or law enforcement assistance in a county this size?
911 initially was hard going because to bring people on board, get all the agencies cooperatively working with it, and I've always been a proponent or a real strong advocate for it, and I think it's now an excellent service. I think that the different sophisticated equipment that we have now in the police cars, a lot of times the police officer can see the 911 complaint as it's being typed in even before it's given out on the computer, and then it gives locations so that you don't, back when I was a real man working as a young trooper, you had to, get out your map and look to see where you're going. Today with the computerization, they pretty much drive you right to a complaint. So it's a great asset because it ties the fire, the ambulance, and the police, coordinates everybody together, and it really is a great system.
And you talk about 911 can hear the dispatch radio in the background as we speak. We're on the line today on Top Story with our Top Story of the Week, Steuben County Sheriff Dave Cole, who announced he's not running again. Sheriff, we talked about what a big county this is. Do you notice any difference in the types of complaints and crimes on one side of the county versus another side of the county?
Yeah, I think in the rural areas, such as where I live, it's quite complacent. Wayland, Cohocton, South Dansville. Atlanta, toward that way. But you get toward the cities, like cities per se, Corning, Hornell, and then the large village of Bath. There seems to be a lot more complaint work. So a lot of your police departments in those villages and cities are also, quite busy.
And what do you attribute that to? Is bigger population more likely that you're going to get a complaint?
Bigger population, but I think the influx of drugs also has attributed to a lot of the criminal element.
And do you find that I just as an outside observer, I noticed that a lot of the drug arrests in a place like Bath or different places in Livingston County, a lot of that seems to be coming from 390 and specifically Rochester, Monroe County. Do you find that to be the case, Sheriff?
Yes, most of it here is from that direction, Buffalo, also from Binghamton and South. And what we've been trying to do is develop a talent with our road patrols to be able to identify transport vehicles, the drug tip line that we get from the public, plus all the information we get from the different police departments in other counties. We're trying to work a little harder at getting the transport vehicles when we can identify them.
Talking with Steuben County Sheriff Dave Cole here on Top Story. Of course, the top story this week is Sheriff Cole announcing his retirement. We're going to take a quick break, back in 60 seconds. On today's Top Story, I'm Brian O'Neill. Steuben County Sheriff Dave Cole, top story of the week. He is retiring in December. Sheriff Cole, you are pointing us in the direction of Under Sheriff Jim Allard, who's going to be running, and he has the support of the Hornell Republicans. He has your support. Tell us about Allard.
Actually, before I became sheriff, I approached Jim at Corning Community College. He actually taught the police courses down there for, 3 or 4 years. So he's very talented in connections with criminal justice in Albany, and I use him here all the time. I save a huge amount of taxpayer dollars because he can train and certify police officers in a variety of number of courses where generally in the past you would have to send them away to academies or other schools and pay for transportation and to accommodate them while they're gone for a couple of days. Jim, on the police end, as far as the educational end, he's really the backbone of the department. I use him for all of my intelligence on different laws and different things I should know or things that come up. On the police work end, he worked for Corning Police Department for, I think, 21, 22 years, and he became a police supervisor, a lieutenant, and was a lieutenant down there for a good number of years. So he has a police administration background, which gives him the knowledge of things that need to be done here. And probably one of the biggest things here with being sheriff is working contracts, working unions, working internal affairs, and things like that. And I've helped Jim, mentored Jim in that respect, and I think he'll do a great job.
Sheriff Cole, I noticed that when we did interviews over the years, you would bring Jim Allard with you, and also Eric Tyner, the Steuben County investigator, wondering, would there be any interest in making Eric Tyner maybe the undersheriff if Jim Allard becomes the sheriff?
I know. I talked to Jim about that. What he's going to do is interview several viable candidates. I'm not sure who he's going to pick. He hasn't said anything to me.
Yeah, that Eric Tyner, you see him out at events, and he speaks very well and is very knowledgeable. I think I remember him best appearing on a show here when the SAFE Act came out, and he was able to voice such intelligent arguments against the SAFE Act. So it'd be very interesting to see what happens with Eric Tyner's career. Talking with Sheriff Dave Cole. Sheriff, what do you remember most about the people of Steuben County looking back in your 4 years as sheriff and your 9 years as undersheriff?
Well, the one thing is when I first come on and I worked for the state police, I worked down toward New York City for a year, and the environment is totally different. The people here are respectful, polite, kind. It's just a great area. I can't think of anyone in the county that I dislike or that I don't get along with. People are cooperative. I just have really enjoyed working here all of my career, most of my career.
Sheriff, the fight against drugs. There are some who believe, and I'd be interested in your take on this. There are some who believe that the addicts are over incarcerated. But for those of you who spend a lot of time around the drinking and driving world and the driving under the influence world, those of you who get bullied and slugged when you pull someone over when they're high, what do you say to somebody who says, these people need help, they don't need arrest, but then the behavior that they often engage in leads to getting arrested? What would you say there, Sheriff?
A lot of cases, I think what the public doesn't understand a lot of times is what's often missing is the consideration of the victim. A lot of, like you mentioned, the alcohol and the drinking, going to the fatal accidents or the personal injury accidents that are involved in alcohol. When you make an arrest of somebody that's the perpetrator in that, that's a satisfying thing that you follow through on. But also on arresting somebody that hasn't been involved yet, it might protect the victim down the road. So it isn't that these crimes are just picking on the bad guy because they have a drug problem. It's picking on somebody that may or has actually victimized other people because of their problem. And I believe that incarceration is the method to find the solution to the problem.
You think sometimes the people suffering from addiction are better off incarcerated to prevent something worse from happening?
Penal law, New York State criminal law, whatever that prescribes. But I also do believe in treatment or some sort of way of helping them overcome their addiction. But what I'm saying is that a lot of times people don't consider the victims of some of these crimes committed by drug dealers or drug abusers or drunk drivers or whatever, and they forget about the victims in these crimes and their families and the things they have to go through. Punishment has to fit the crime.
Okay. Talking with Steuben County Sheriff Dave Cole. Sheriff Cole, what do you think, looking back, what would you say about the different, law enforcement agencies that you've worked with? Any memories there that you'd like to share?
I think probably the thing I remember the most and I enjoyed the most wasn't actually being a boss or being a sheriff or being a station commander with the state police. I enjoyed being a road trooper, working the road patrol, because you're out there, you're dealing with criminals at times, but most of the time you're dealing with the public. If you're stopping somebody to help them change a flat tire or you're giving CPR, I've actually saved a couple people with CPR. It's a very satisfying feeling. I mean, this job isn't just about arresting people; it's about helping people. And I've had the pleasure of being able to drive around my house, my hometown, most of my career, pretty much physically. And you're basically getting paid to drive around and help people, help the public in the areas that you live, and that's been the biggest enjoyment that I've had.
Talking with Steuben County Sheriff Dave Cole. Guessing that you've spoken with Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker on a lot of cases over the years. What do you remember most about him?
He really works hard on his cases. He takes a personal interest in it, and I've always been aligned with him and mandated that my people work very closely with him.
Another big thing that the Sheriff's Office has worked on over the years is welfare fraud cases, and we get the press releases for those all the time. I know that the Steuben County Sheriff's Department works hard with the District Attorney's Office on those kinds of cases. What stands out most in recalling that line of work, Sheriff Cole?
In that line of work, the District Attorney's Office places a couple of part-time investigators, and I place a full-time investigator right into DSS social services to actually work on the welfare fraud. So I actually give them personnel that actually a person that actually works right there every day of the week. And there's an extensive amount of cases that they develop and with arrests and reconciliation.
We've been talking with Steuben County Sheriff Dave Cole and looking back at his law enforcement career, 41 years in law enforcement, fighting drugs, cracking down on as we just said, welfare fraud, the creation of the anti-drug tip line and anti-drug tip website, more school resource officers. You're a big believer in that program, Sheriff.
Yes, I think that the school resource officers are not only the protection. The one thing about school resource officers is a lot of the school shootings that we've had over the years in different villages and cities and states, the shooter doesn't know, if a school resource officer, where in fact he's going to be in the school. And there's only been, I think, one shooting where a school resource officer actually was able to take out the shooter. In most cases, I think a school resource officer, first of all, will be able to stop any type of thought of coming to a school with a gun, because they know there's a cop in there with a gun. But secondly, the school resource officer has contact with the students, and I know that, excuse me, when I was a school resource officer at Addison for 4 years, I had contact with a lot of students, and I think I had, I was able to have input with them and influence on them and help them out. So it wasn't just being a cop in the school, but being of assistance to the students and staff in the school as a police officer.
We've been talking with Steuben County Sheriff Dave Cole. He'll be remembered for speaking out against anti-police sentiment and his SAFE Act opposition, working with school resource officers, fighting drugs and welfare fraud in Steuben County. Quite the legacy. Sheriff Cole, want to thank you very much for your years of service and for joining us today.
Oh, thanks a lot.
And you're listening to AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. ABC is next.